Yeah, I guess we should do like a formal introduction, so everyone listening knows who they're listening to and whatnot. So joining us is Patty Polinger. She's one of the co-founders of the original Vidiots way back in the day. Patty, thanks for being on our show.
My pleasure.
Cathy Tauber, one of the other co-founders of the original Vidiots way back in the day. Cathy, thanks for being on with us.
Sure. Thank you for having us.
And last, but certainly not least, Maggie Mackay. You were the one that kind of got this all going and operating. You are the executive director of Vidiots. Maggie, thanks for being on our show as well.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to talk about Vidiots. Any chance I get to talk about Vidiots, especially to a new audience, is very thrilling.
I'm curious. I know Dustin and I did a little bit of research on you guys prior to this, to having you on the show. But Cathy and Patty, you guys have known each other since you were kids, right? Is that right, Patty?
Kindergarten.
Nursery,
Wow.
actually.
Yeah, nursery school.
Wow.
Children's World on Robertson. Yes. We were there.
Oh, wow.
Well,
We certainly never thought, oh, we're going to grow up and open videos.
Right. So Patty, did you who approached who first with the idea of opening up a video store?
Well, Cathy and I were both really just unhappy in our jobs, working for other people in a bigger corporate setting, and we were fishing around for ideas. So we had a lot of ideas. In those days it was the frozen yogurt shop and that. But we read an article in Esquire magazine, and it talked about these other video stores that were very unusual and had unique inventory, and one in San Francisco, one in New York. Anyway, and we were like, there's nothing like this, and this is like a movie town. And I was working for MGM at the time, and I knew that there was so much more available out there. And so that's how the idea was born.
It was really, and it was the timing, because I was at the time, I think both of us, going into video stores. I didn't even have a VCR, but I was going into video stores with friends. And I was like, there's nothing really interesting. I've either seen it or I don't really want to see it. And then when that article came out, it was like, oh, you can really get some foreign films and
Independent.
the whole thing about independent video art and independent
Yep.
films, and that's kind of sparked it.
And we're talking early 1980s, right?
85, early 85.
Amazing. How did you decide upon the name?
Well, we needed a short name because we couldn't afford a neon sign. And my sister actually came up with the name. And many people hated the name before we opened. We had people tell us, that's terrible. You're insulting your customers. It's a horrible name. You shouldn't use it.
Yep.
I like to tell people all the time that I really genuinely think if Patty and Cathy had not been so forward thinking in naming Vidiots, seeing that gorgeous logo, that I don't think that we would be around anymore. I think the logo and the name recognition attached to the thing that they actually created, the vibe and the impact on everybody, really has given us longevity. But I do think a lot of the credit goes to the name and the logo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I wanted to have you guys on because Vidiots is, I think, we think we're catching you like at the perfect time where you're about to relaunch and take off into this new stratosphere. And in my opinion, and I think just going back to those days of nostalgia and revisiting those moments really like are important, because it's a historical time that I think often gets overlooked. The era of video stores, while it's starting to make a comeback with shows like Stranger Things and whatnot, you guys are like really, this relaunch is very exciting.
Yeah, I think it is part of our history, and there'd be a lot missing in terms of breadth of titles, human interaction around film.
Totally.
I'm sure you're familiar with all that. I'm speaking to the choir here, but yeah, it's definitely in people's, memory as kids of the good times going to the store. And yeah, the zeitgeist right now is there's a resurgence for sure of all that feeling coming
And
back.
I know, like myself, even like going into a record store, like I don't realize how much I miss it until I'll walk in and feel that, like, wow.
Yeah, touch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic also, the sort of convergence of being on lockdown, being at home, deprived of being around people you're not blood related to, if you were lucky to have other people in your orbit.
Yeah.
And then also the sort of streaming wars with the big streamers, and just the splintering of all of those sort of archives. The timing of that weirdly has really moved our mission forward in a lot of ways.
It's great.
I mean, I didn't have to soapbox. I don't have to soapbox to as many people as I used to have to. But even the first year I was with Vidiots, there were people, I had a guy who said, well, like, I'm a cinephile, but I don't have a DVD player anymore. And I was like, I don't think you can call yourself a
You're not a
cinephile
cinephile,
then.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And now no one anymore says, like, why are you trying to build a movie theater and a video store collection? No one has said that to me in at least 3 years.
That's good. Can you talk about the relaunch, sort of where you're at with it? And it's going to be in Eagle Rock, local to LA, where we are. We're very excited, but obviously you just mentioned it's not just a video store. There is a theater. Tell us about all the components that we can look forward to.
Yeah. So when we closed Vidiots, we knew we were going to reopen. I did. I don't know how everybody else thought, but I was like, I will die on this hill.
Awesome.
And I may yet, who knows?
I would just say Maggie is she's the most determined person I've ever met. She's, this
Amazing.
never would be happening.
And her passion is
No
definitely
one else could have
make it.
done this.
Yeah.
No one could have done this.
Well, I hope that I can do it well. But I have Patty and Cathy saying nice things to me and with me every step of the way, which makes me want to do it all the more. I think one of the things that makes me so passionate about it was that the first time I went to meet Patty and Cathy, I didn't know they were Patty and Cathy. I mean, I became aware right before I went to meet them that Vidiots was founded by women. But until that point, it had not dawned on me, because we live in such a, suffice it to say, screwed up culture, that anything that's presumed to be cool is always identified as somehow masculine, started by men, driven by men. And when I met Patty and Cathy in person, I was just saying drink the Kool-Aid is like the understatement of the year. I mean, and seeing the collection, and like, just the collection is just, nobody but Patty and Cathy could have put that together. So that's the driving force. But as far as the new space, it's amazing, you guys. It's a marriage between these two things that in 2022 could not exist without each other. So one is an 11,000 square foot 1929 movie theater with a huge attached storefront. And then, of course, our collection and our history. And what we're doing is renovating this amazing building. The theater ran from 29 until 2000, and was a very beloved member of the community for that time, in slightly different iterations, but the projectors didn't turn off for 70 years.
Wow.
And so what we're doing with it is very slightly changing the footprint of the theater space. It was a 900 seat theater through most of its life. It's massive. It doesn't look it from the outside, but it's huge. So we're slightly decreasing the size of the theater interior to create a usable lobby space. The lobby, when we inherited the building, was about a hallway.
But Cathy and Patty, Cathy, did you have this when you started Vidiots back in 1985? Like, did you have a vision that thinking, oh, this is going to last for a while? Or did you think, Well, this is
We
kind of goes, yeah.
In fact, we hired a consultant that had some stores in Berkeley, or a store in Berkeley. And he said, oh, it's a 5-year business. You know, you get in, you make some money, get out. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
Well, at the time, our big dilemma was choosing if we should get Betamax. So yeah, that was like, we knew formats were changing all the time. So we was like, yeah, this is not a long-term business.
and we opened with 800 VHS tapes.
Oh, wow.
We had like no money, you know, we're completely underfunded. And we had some film student friends that helped us like really hand pick those 800. Everything was great of those 800 movies. But you know, we went from like trying to look like the store wasn't too empty. And then we started with 1,000 square feet. So it was tiny when we first opened. And then it ended up being about 3,700 square feet. So we expanded 3 times. We kept outgrowing the space.
Was it always in that, because for those listening who are not familiar with Southern California, I'm familiar with the location that was on Pico and 4th in Santa Monica. Was it always that location?
There. Yeah,
okay.
It was always there. We had a couple businesses leave, and then we would take over the next door space. And then we took over, there was a pet store next door. We took over part of that space.
And not only did the physical space grow, but you certainly evolved from 800 VHS tapes as well, right?
To 50,000.
50,000.
50.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then in 2010, we put in the annex, which was our like little screening room.
Yep. I remember, and you had trivia nights, and I would go to your trivia nights every now and
Oh.
then. Yeah.
But Patty and Cathy had been doing programming before the annex came in. So that was one of the reasons why I was so drawn to Vidiots initially, was because it wasn't just a transactional space. I mean, you guys had a film programmed, I think right after you opened that little Elvis documentary. So they were, I think, very much at the forefront of really thinking about how you build community spaces around art in ways that I don't know of a single other video store that was doing that early. Now everybody's had to morph and get creative about how they're going to bring people into these spaces. But Patty and Cathy were doing it from day one.
And some of our events weren't even film related, but they were community based. Like we would go down to the Venice Boardwalk and find a performance artist we liked and bring them in, or we would just do an event around a film and make it fun. And
love that.
Yeah.
We would shut down, we do a weekend night. We had rolling racks. So we, rent chairs and shut down for business for a few hours.
And we tried to invite,
and they were always free, free events.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we tried to invite like independent filmmakers or video artists as well. We once had Survival Research Lab come from the Bay Area. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they film these weird robotic things that blow up, and actually one of the founding members had blown off part of his hand doing this. And when he came to our store as part of the event, he wanted to do some explosives, but we shut that down. But
you already lost part of your hand.
We still have those VHS tapes from Survival Research Labs, and they're pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. What would that be in your documentary category, or what category?
Performance art, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it was in our performance art, section. Wow. We had a lot of weird sections. Yeah.
It's in storage.
Yes.
It's still there.
That's right.
Well, and Maggie, you hit upon a really important point that it was for it, most of these kind of cool quote unquote businesses were dominated by dudes or whatever, and for you two, Cathy and Patty, to be like pioneers of a movement that is typically dominated by men or whatever, that's a big accomplishment and something that needs to be made a bigger deal of.
We never thought about it. Well, we thought about it when we went to the bank for a loan and they told us to ask our fathers.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
True story. Yeah.
We didn't, we were hitting some obstacles, but I never really thought, oh, like we're women, we're, pioneering this or anything like that.
I mean, sometimes it did, go to our advantage in negotiating, or sometimes people would underestimate what we were about. So sometimes it worked to our advantage. But.
Well, speaking personally, my mom was the first of like one or two female employees in the city of Los Altos in their like Parks and Rec department. And, always was kind of a pioneer, single mom, and raised me to, I felt like she did a pretty decent job. And I was always like, yeah, my mom kicks ass. My mom is, if there was ever like an argument that I needed someone to back me up on, my mom was the one that I would like, oh, my mom can take care of that, And so, especially right now, everything, the chaos that's going on in the world, I just think it's important to just recognize, that we need more of this. And it's so great that Vidiots is fighting the good fight and in living and thriving and getting so close to where they need to be.
I think also the fact that Patty and Cathy are women absolutely must have had an impact on the good feeling that people experienced going into Vidiots all those years. The feeling that you were in this like really exciting, really comfortable, fun space. I mean, we're based in Los Angeles, so we have 30 years of really high profile customers, and then regular people and kids and old people. And that Vidiots is one of the few spaces that I had ever been in way before I was involved with Vidiots that really feels like everybody in LA is in it and viewed the same way, taken care of the same way, invited in the same way. And there are very few spaces in LA I can say that about. I've lived here 25 years, and Vidiots, it's like Vidiots and the beach and like LACMA or
Right.
Those are, and
Right.
the farmers market at 3rd and Fairfax. Those are my places where I think of as like, and Griffith Park, sorry, one more, where everybody's there and we're all there kind of equally enjoying each other. And the high profile people feel comfortable there. And the 5-year-old kid feels as welcomed and as taken as seriously as a customer as Keanu or Laura Dern. So I think that's a really unique to Patty and Cathy, and maybe unique to women, but definitely to Patty and Cathy.
We actually had an 8-year-old kid, Mason, who had his own section. He was a film buff, this 8-year-old kid.
Love
Gave
that.
him his own section, yeah.
Do you remember what some of the titles might have been in that section offhand?
Oh, no.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
one of our former employees might.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Was Mason just a regular customer?
He came in with his mom. They lived in the neighborhood, and he was just this like pretty highbrow film buff for an 8-year-old.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. He got older, changed his name to Wes Anderson, and the rest.
Yeah.
Really?
Or who knows? Maybe he's in film
I think
school.
I think he ended up being a musician, Mason.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go. Right. That's cool. I mean, like that. Yeah, I remember going in your store and feeling that vibe. On our show, speaking personally, I have very eclectic taste. I'll like everything from very considered highbrow cinematic history to like the lowest of low cult B movies that, Full Moon Entertainment put out or whatever. Because my palette is very diverse. And I feel like that is a palette that should be appreciated rather than looked down upon, because I so often, especially in the video store, in the video stores and the record stores, if you like something that's quote unquote mainstream, you're kind of frowned upon. Right?
We always had, that was our pet peeve. We had, one of our former managers that kind of had that. We were always just would cringe,
Yeah.
If someone was embarrassed to come up and ask for the a director they didn't know, or something that
Yeah.
someone might see as mainstream or, crappy. Yeah, that was our pet peeve, because I know some other video stores had that reputation.
No, and neither of us had a real film background, and Vidiots was kind of our film school, and I didn't want anyone to feel excluded or bad. And I have all sorts of eclectic tastes, highbrow, lowbrow, and yes, I don't think that you should be, defined by what titles you're renting. Yes, that's, we wanted everyone not to feel that snobbery and sort of, being judged. Yeah.
Absolutely. I imagine it could be an issue. Somebody's afraid to ask if you have Titanic in, and
Right. And the employees got pretty carried away with the categories and the director sections. And I was worried, like, oh, is someone going to be intimidated by that they might just want the movie. They don't know what director it is.
right.
Well, not going to lie, you had a heavy influence on me with my subcategories because I have a huge video collection that Dustin is fully aware of, because
That he alphabetizes based on Vidiots.
And then
category.
down to
okay.
like minute, like it's my sports category, but then there's the martial arts or the boxing.
You have UFO. A UFO category, we had that.
There you go.
One of the really fun campaigns we've launched to help fund the relaunch has been people sponsoring sections of the video store.
Awesome.
And which meant we did increase the number of directors sections. But like, being able to tell someone we have a UFO section, or, like a bikers and pinup ladies. I mean, and we're not talking there's like one or two movies in these sections. We're like,
No.
the music sections alone, we have an entire section on Zydeco music.
Wow.
It's incredible what Patty and Cathy were able to find and collect. And this is mostly on DVD and Blu-ray. I mean, the DVDs are the bulk of the collection. So it's not like the VHS stuff is really special and it's really rare, but we are actively renting a very living medium.
I was
Amazing.
wondering if Cathy and Patty, like, I'm sure that happens,
Cathy.
right? That's gotta happen.
I did that for the first 6 months I worked with Cathy and Patty.
I could tell you, Zach gets turned into crack all the time when it comes to my brother, but that's a whole other story.
Not by mistake. That's just what he calls them.
Yeah, right. Patty or Cathy, were you tape hunters? Did you go out and have to go out and curate yourself, or are we talking like specifically just catalogs, or how did you kind of amass this huge collection?
Warehouses in the valley of like used tapes.
Literally digging through stuff.
Treasure hunt.
It was like a treasure hunt. And then we had different, all different ways in the beginning that we would get rare stuff. Sometimes a filmmaker themselves would come into the store and offer something that wasn't that available, or which happened. We got, I think, Henry Miller Asleep and Awake that way from the filmmaker, where Henry Miller's in his bathrobe in the bathroom talking about the writing on the walls. And or Rachel Rosenthal, the performance artist, lived in the neighborhood, so we would get some of her tapes. And then we would seek out some of these smaller catalogs that were unique. And
we had this guy who was a used tape broker who would get us Japanese imports. He would charge a fortune. We'd pay like, $300 for
I think his side hustle was selling vintage Hawaiian shirts or something.
This is pre-eBay, guys. This is
Genius.
It would be like, can you get us this? This is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
That was back in the day. That was something that was early Jackie Chan movies were always really hard to come by. especially where I lived in the Bay Area for a bit. And so if someone ever got their hands on a bootleg, they just, we'd swarm over and have a big kind of pizza party or whatever to watch it. You mentioned that filmmakers would come into your store. You dropped Keanu's name and Laura Dern's name. Would you say, do you have any fond memories of a celebrity or someone well-known that people would go, oh yeah, like a fun story about that?
Well, my fun story was that I didn't recognize Keanu when he came in to rent. And I asked him for his driver's license because he rode in on his motorcycle and, took off the helmet. I don't recognize most people at all anyway, but he, of course, was total gentleman and cracked up and thought it was really funny. So yeah.
That was also really a long time ago.
That was really
yeah.
Yeah, it was
Well,
a long time ago.
Full disclosure, I will tell you, Fred Savage came into Tower Records back in the day, and I asked him for his ID, and he goes, "Are you serious?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm Fred Savage." I go, "I know, but I still need to see your ID. It's the policy." So.
Keanu wasn't like that at all. Yeah, he was like, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of like a specific story.
We got really excited when Tom Petty wanted to order, because we used to sell Russ Meyer t-shirts. He got Faster Pussycat Kill Kill for his tour, so from us. So that was exciting.
You guys, I have a Tom Petty logo tattooed on my arm. You never told me that.
Really? You didn't know that story?
Oh. I'm a Tom Petty number 1 fan.
Oh yeah, he wanted the Russ Meyer t-shirt for tour. Yeah. And Marlon Brando we never got to meet, but he did order I Am Cuba from us, which is a rare documentary. He got that, and I'm just trying to think of any funny.
I've got a good one. It's a Clerk story, but we had a good one. A dear friend of mine who's a founding member of Vidiots, this is a major donor of the relaunch. He worked for Patty and Cathy for a little while, and Carl Weathers came in, and he got so, he fanned out so hard he could barely talk. He was like freaking out, and he then could only utter the words Action Jackson over and over and over again, to the point where Carl Weathers got really weirded out and left. And our friend just went running down the street, yelling, "Bye, Action Jackson!" It was and he was like, it just overwhelmed me and I couldn't control myself. I like that story. That's a good one.
That's amazing. We love Action Jack. Was it during the 80s or was it, because that would be weirder, I guess, if it was later?
Probably 90s.
90s?
Right?
Okay.
Probably 90s.
Right.
90s, yeah.
So Action Jackson was no longer in theaters. It was not it was not
No,
a
this
top
was
rental.
Somebody who had watched the movie and obsessed over it as a kid.
Yeah.
We had some great events with Viggo Mortensen reciting poetry and,
Can you talk about that? Because that I know about that event. I didn't go to it, but tell us about that event.
It was a spoken word event.
Yeah.
And we had Exene and who else was
Eliza Richardson, wasn't she part of it?
Yeah.
DJ. And then, and we
he
also
was a long time customer. Really, Patty and I would be like, "Yeah, I think he's going to make it as an actor."
And he also exhibited his photography. He's like the Renaissance man. He doesn't just dabble; he's really good at everything. So he exhibited his photography there, and we did have other visual artists have their works there. One person, Bill Barminski, who later worked with Banksy in Brighton, England on a project. And so that was cool too.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And you had a tribute to Harry Dean Stanton, did you not?
Yes. That was Maggie put that one together.
That was amazing.
So
that was one of the best events I've ever been to, and all credit to the people who really put it together. I just begged and pleaded and shepherded and we were lucky enough to get enough people to say yes to us. And then we pulled everybody down the rabbit hole, which seems to be my specialty. But it was at the theater at Ace in 2016, really like less than a year before Harry passed. And I've been a fan weirdly since I was like 9, when my mom inappropriately took me to see Paris, Texas. And
we talk about this all the time on our show, inappropriate times to see movies.
But yeah, and it completely changed my life. I don't think I'd ever experienced empathy for a complicated character before that moment. And then of course, Harry just kept popping up in things as I got older. Like then I went to like Pretty in Pink, and then I was like, going down the punk rabbit hole, and went to, Repo Man, and then he was just always there, and I loved him. And then I showed this amazing documentary by our friend Sophie Huber at the LA Film Festival when I was working there. And Sophie had always said, like, nobody ever gives Harry proper credit. He's never been really nominated for a big award.
Yep.
He's just there, and people don't recognize how important he is to the culture. And I said, well, let's do a show. We'll find a way to give him a tribute at some point. This was before I was talking to Patty and Cathy about Vidiots, and I just kept hitting walls on how to get it funded and how to do it and what the structure would be. And then when I went to Vidiots, then I knew we had 2 big dilemmas when I got to Vidiots. One was half of everybody thought we were gone already, and the other half thought we were being completely bankrolled by Annapurna Pictures, which Annapurna and Megan had come in with a very generous gift to support Patty and Cathy when they were on the verge of really closing in 2015. But we had not been purchased. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were still very much on, really on the edge in Santa Monica of not being able to stay. And so I thought, okay, we'll do a big event. And then that was finally the impetus to throw this event for Harry. And still to this day, I run into people who are like, aren't you the person who was at the thing with the Harry Dean? And everybody uniformly will say it was the best event we ever went to.
Well, I think it turned out so great because everyone loves Harry. And
people were.
I mean, Angelica Houston was there, Chris Christopherson. I mean, it was just so, and it was out of love for Harry that they came and told stories that were just incredible. Yeah, it was really great.
It's all on our YouTube page and in sections, and everybody kind of has their, like, Karen O sang this song with the amazing professional whistler, Molly Lewis, who, I mean, I have goosebumps just talking about it. And they sang the song that Harry sings in Cool Hand Luke. And it was
wow.
You can go back and watch the video, and you will feel like you were in the room. It was kind of life-changing.
What a
John
amazing...
Densmore playing drums with Father John Misty doing Moonlight Ride.
So are you envisioning, obviously at your new location, this will be something that we will see more often than not, right?
Well, we're very lucky that Maggie's husband is a DJ at KCRW. So hoping to have music events and other community, centered events.
That's really special.
The music, I think one of the reasons why I really gravitated towards Vidiots was that Patty and Cathy weren't just like cinephiles with a capital C. There's this love of music and performance art, and it's really so, it shows you so beautifully how film in a way is the kind of equalizer among the arts, and how it can pull in all of these other connective tissues to all of the other art forms that exist. And the arts are not siloed from each other. No. Music and film can't exist without each other, I think, in modern music. And film certainly can't exist without music. And so the fact that Patty and Cathy always had a foot, I always felt in music, was very inspiring to me, because the Harry Dean event was largely musical performance. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think you'll see a lot of that at Vidiots for sure.
Well, that was the thing that you had done an event, I think it was last year, maybe for Out of Bounds, the 1980s movie with Anthony Michael Hall, and Dustin and I on our Instagram, we do a soundtrack Saturday thing, and we did a little thing for that. And because we have a love of the music with these movies as well, so much of our show is not just about the movies of the 80s and early 90s, but also the music of that time and how unique it was, and how sometimes these songs just go by the wayside and get forgotten from a movie. And you think, how come that didn't wind up on the soundtrack? Or if it did, that soundtrack never got repressed as a CD or later on as an MP3 or whatever on Spotify. And because there is an article that came out fairly recently about the physical media is making a comeback because digital media is being, one, censored into a respect, and two, deleted off your services. It can come and go. Yeah. So, I think championing video stores like yourself who are trying to keep the physical media alive, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, people said the same thing about records. Oh, records it's a dead art form. It's not going to come back. And you look at records now and it's just a part of the normal culture everywhere you go. And so I think the same is going to be said about DVDs, Blu-rays, VHS companies, or people are putting out VHS tapes again, which is really beautiful. And I think it's just great that you guys are keeping so much of this alive and bringing it to the forefront.
Well, I think people have this misconception that you can just stream everything, that it's all available, and it's so wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, before we shut down, I couldn't believe the things that people would come in and say, no, we can't get this anywhere. That seemed pretty mainstream.
What was Franklin Leonard's statistic about? Oh, what was it that he came up with? That
at one point, our friend Franklin Leonard, founder of the Blacklist, came in. This was when we were still open in Santa Monica, so we haven't done the math in a while. But when he looked at it pretty closely, he was like, basically at that time, Vidiots, our collection was 2 times all of the streaming services combined. And
wow. So that was like, I never had.
We didn't believe it. Yeah. We were like, no, that can't be.
Yeah.
And now it's even more complicated because of the sort of contentious nature of the big streamers, kind of like these things are just
fragmented. Yeah.
And beyond that, even if, let's say in a fantasy world for streamers, they were streaming quote unquote everything, you would have to have, a normal person would have to have
a lot of money,
20 streaming services to have even a base level of access to remotely what you would have at a video store.
Right.
And that is simply unaffordable and not inclusive.
No.
And what titles get dropped when a company's bottom line is driving the decisions. And it not to mention the fact that browsing physical media is completely different than trying to find something, through a screen. It's not the same. And these things don't have to exist independently. I mean, they can coexist. Mubi is one of our biggest sponsors. And the way that we all see it is that there's room for all of us, and one addiction feeds another. So if you love Vidiots and you love hanging out at Vidiots, you're a lot more likely to go sign up for one of these niche streaming services because you've been turned on to it, and vice versa.
Well, I was thinking on the vice versa side, because we just had an actor on our show, Stoney Jackson, who was in Streets of Fire, and he was, the list goes, The White Shadow, and he was in a movie called Knights of the City, directed and written by Leon Isaac Kennedy. And it's available on YouTube. You can go out and watch it, but the quality is so poor, and it's digitized and it's pixelized. And I think it would be a great gateway for people to see it that way, and then go to your video store and find a way to find it at your video store. Not that I'm saying you guys have that. I'm just saying. You know,
Look.
Maybe.
Wait, tell
might.
me the title again.
We might.
Knights of the City. You got to check it out. It's basically, Dustin, how would you describe Knights of the City?
I don't know that you got to check it out. Let's be clear. I don't know that I would say you have to check it out. But it's you know, it's 80s. It's like dance gangs. It's sort of, you know, yeah. I mean, it's just very specifically music driven. And what is it? 84? 80?
I think it's 84 or 85.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of I mean, I think it's very fun because it's just one of those movies that's just very much like there's not a lot of story per se, and it's very driven by the sort of, you know, there's one great dance scene, I feel like, and yeah.
Smokey Robinson's in it too.
Oh,
Smokey Robinson and Casey from Casey and the Sunshine Man.
It's a masterpiece. Would you say it's a masterpiece, Dustin?
It's fine.
I'm saying,
I don't need to see it again, I guess.
If you don't have that category at your store, you should have a masterpiece section, a section like it's so bad it's good, a masterpiece. I'm just, and then $2 late fee could sponsor it.
that's good. That's a good one.
We'll sponsor that for sure.
Okay.
Can people get involved, you know, in sponsoring you and memberships and all that good stuff? And if they can, how can they do that?
Yes, please. We need you to get involved. That's how we make art spaces in the city of Los Angeles in 2022, is by coming together to make it happen. People can make donations of any size. They can join as founding members, which are our major donors, 5K and above. They can sponsor a video store shelf at $300. They can make their own unique curated section for $1,000. They can name a seat in the Eagle Theater. And then people can also get involved by spreading the word about what we're doing. We've done most of this fundraising in a pandemic, which meant that for the longest time, we were really reaching people through social media and word of mouth. It's been a very grassroots campaign. Whether or not we intended it to be this grassroots, it has been. And honestly, people telling their friends about the relaunch and tipping off other film lovers to what we're doing has been how we've raised $2.2 million in a pandemic.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
We've got a gap to go to get open, but we're closing in on $650,000, and the building is looking amazing, and we will open in 2022.
Okay. So the gap is closing.
Yeah.
And all of our listeners can help with the gap.
Yep.
Help continue to close that gap.
Vidiotsfoundation.org.
Okay, we'll put that below.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in the show notes and whatnot, for sure.
This is kind of a random question. Do you remember what the late fees were when you opened originally?
It was per day. So whatever I think our rentals were $350. So
it was $3.
When we opened, it was per day.
Yeah.
And then it was a huge deal when we started giving people 2 days.
Yeah.
You know, when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video started getting, that was the demise of us. Not when they opened, when they started getting rid of their late fees.
Yeah, but a new VHS mainstream title when we opened was probably somewhere close to $90.
Yeah.
The VHS,
yeah,
they were really expensive.
Yeah.
Now they are again. It's bizarre. I mean, like,
right.
I've turned into like a tape hunter now. I mean, when Bruce Willis announced he was retiring, everybody was freaking out because Moonlighting is not available to stream anywhere.
Oh.
And people were really freaking out. And I was like, because we've got them all. And then I discovered we were missing one season. And I was like, okay, $300, here we go. And now we have.
You found it?
I found it, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we do. I mean, I'm tape hunting now for people. People email all the time and ask like, hey, do you have this in the collection? A lot of people want to buy stuff, and that's when I have to turn them down because we don't sell anything from the collection.
Yeah, you're kind of jumping into my a question as we get ready to wrap up. What's a holy grail movie or tape? It could be anything. Do you have one? And I'm putting you on the spot, of course, but
Maggie, it's probably something in VHS that it never made it to DVD. And we had some UCLA archivists go through and pull some of those things out. Just trying to think of one. I mean,
I'm blanking out.
I mean,
The Jonas Mekas, John Lennon, Happy Birthday, John Lennon is John Lennon. I said that right?
yeah.
My brain is like,
Maggie's in like
wrong when I said
fundraising
it.
overtime. So,
I know. I'm like, wait, who? You can cut that part and I'll start over.
Sure.
The Jonas Mekas Happy Birthday, John Lennon is pretty rare. A lot of people have asked if they can have ours. It's you can see it, but for some reason the physical media copy of it is very special to collectors. And my
Interesting.
answer is always no, but no, they can't have it.
Good for you.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Probably maybe some early punk stuff. Maybe some art kind of things that nobody has. I'm trying to think of specific titles. Yeah.
Or even if you can't think of that, how about what is a favorite movie of yours?
Oh,
Patty, do you have one? I'm sure you do.
oh, lots. I mean,
Yeah,
I remember when we first opened and we were, I don't know, I haven't watched the movie in a long time. I don't even know if I would like it anymore, but we were looking for Verhoeven's Picnic at Hanging Rock. Like it had come out and then it had gone out of print. And that was one of the things that we found that I got so excited about because I really love that film.
I
Yeah.
still have the Criterion version of that. So
Yeah, now,
Yeah.
not a big deal to get it
Yeah.
at the time. And I think the most stolen thing that we had, because it was hard to get, is Rock and Roll Disciples. That was
Really?
like always missing out of the inventory.
and it was really expensive to replace it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because we had to get
wow.
it from Japan all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Japanese version.
Kathy,
And,
how about you?
I don't know. I do remember, like Patty said, the ones that were really tough to find. That Black Orpheus was another one that
Oh,
we
yeah.
were like, oh,
That's a big one. Yeah, totally. This is totally random. I just remember the filmmaker came to my college and it was heralded as a big thing at the time. I forget his name now, but the movie was called Sankofa. Have you guys ever heard of a movie called Sankofa?
Maggie has. I don't know that.
Yeah, definitely. It's had a resurgence because it was previously so hard to find.
Mhm.
I do think we have it in the collection. I've been asked about it before.
Wow.
If we don't, it's like no one. It's like very hard to find.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, some of the thing that I get very sort of heartened by or turned on by when I'm talking to people about the collection are all of the filmmakers who I kind of met or found later. You know, in my career, I've lived in LA almost 25 years, but I'm from New York. I didn't grow up with Vidiots as a kid. But then say somebody like Heather Ray, who's an amazing, very active filmmaker and producer. Heather dropped her first movie off to Patty and Kathy because she didn't know what else to do with it. And it was a sort of experimental doc about her home birth experience.
Wow.
And because Patty and Kathy were known as being very welcoming and supportive of emerging filmmakers, you know, we have that in our collection. And even Heather was like, I can't believe that somebody has that. She was like, I don't even know if I have a hard drive of it somewhere.
yeah, people would.
Yeah.
Also, I think wasn't Let It Be not available? I don't know if it became available, but forever.
we had it
We were
early.
like the only ones that had it. No one had it.
But also some of the weird stuff that we had, you know, we were told, like some of these old Russ Meyer movies that we had, that the archivist said something like, oh, his gardener has, in charge of his estate now that he's,
What?
or whatever it was. It was like, you can't get this anymore.
That's wild.
So yeah.
A lot of animation
Yeah.
that's really hard to find, a lot of experimental stuff, and then some like really mainstream titles that just never made it through to digital, largely I think because of music licensing.
Music rights, yeah,
That's right.
mostly like some random thing would just, like we got it in this small little window and then someone didn't have the music rights, so it got pulled.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
been
we
one of the
used to
shames.
have the Kenneth Anger whole set. And there was some Stones music in one of them, I think, that
Oh, yeah.
wasn't sanctioned. I think someone stole that, actually. I don't know if
No.
it's done anymore. Yeah.
A lot of theft in video stores. That seems
Yeah.
to be a running theme with
Well,
The hard to find stuff that people would say, oh, can I buy it? And we'd be, no, and they would just rent it
Right.
and not return it.
really quick, Maggie, I want to know, is your tattoo from Tom Petty, is it the heart logo with the arrow? Yeah.
The original Heartbreakers logo minus the flying V guitar, because the tattoo artist was like, your arm is too small and it will look stupid. Which is good because I'm kind of a wimp, so I didn't really
Oh
want
my
to.
God.
I didn't want to keep tattooing at a point.
Well, bravo for getting it. I have that on
Yeah.
vinyl. That's many of Tom Petty's.
You have the tattoo on vinyl?
I do have his tattoo and the t-shirt. No. My gosh, Patty, Cathy, Maggie, having you on was so huge.
Hey.
This was wonderful. I thank you so much for your time. I hope that this is the
it's really
beginning
fun.
of
Thank you. It was,
more
Ooh,
down
it was
the
a
road.
lot of fun and great to meet you guys.
Great to
Likewise,
meet you.
Cathy. Likewise.
Yeah.
It's so fun to do something with Patty and Kathy.
Right?
I know it's been a
Uh,
long